Once upon a time, there was a princess named Snow White. She was a beautiful princess with skin as white as snow, lips as red as roses, and hair as black as ebony. She lived in a castle with her stepmother, the evil queen. The queen was very jealous of Snow White's beauty. One day, the queen ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest. "Take her deep into the woods," she commanded. "Kill her and bring me back her heart as proof." The huntsman was scared, but he had to obey the queen. Deep in the forest, the huntsman drew his sword, but he couldn't do it. Snow White was too kind and innocent. "Please," he begged, "run away and never come back." Snow White was terrified and ran into the dark woods. As she ran, she saw scary eyes watching her. The forest seemed alive with danger. Finally, exhausted and afraid, she fell asleep under a tree. What would become of her now, all alone in the woods? Snow White woke up to the sound of little voices. She opened her eyes and saw 7 little dwarfs staring at her in surprise. The dwarfs were miners and lived in a cozy cottage in the woods. The dwarfs were kind and took pity on Snow White. "What's your name, dear?" they asked. Snow White told them her sad story, and the dwarfs were filled with sympathy. They offered her food and shelter. Snow White was grateful to the dwarfs. She kept their little cottage clean and tidy. She cooked their meals and sang them cheerful songs while they were away at work. The dwarfs loved Snow White like a little sister. Every day the dwarfs warned Snow White to be careful. "Let no one in while we're away," they cautioned. "The queen is wicked and will surely try to trick you." Snow White promised to be careful and eagerly awaited their return each evening. The evil queen had a magic mirror. Each day she asked it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always replied, "My queen, you are the fairest here, so true, but Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." Furious, the queen learned that Snow White was still alive. She couldn't believe it. She decided to take matters into her own hands. She brewed a magic potion and transformed herself into an ugly old peddler woman. No one would recognize her now. Disguised as the peddler woman, the queen went into the woods. She knocked on the dwarf's cottage door. "Pretty maiden, I have a magic apple just for you," she croaked. "Kind Snow." White didn't recognize the queen and took a bite of the poisoned apple. As soon as Snow White took a bite, she fell into a deep sleep. The queen cackled and disappeared into the woods. When the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying still. They were heartbroken. They couldn't bear to bury her, so they placed her in a glass coffin. One day, a handsome prince came riding through the forest. He saw Snow White in the glass coffin and was struck by her beauty. The dwarfs told the prince about the evil queen and the poisoned apple. The prince leaned down and kissed Snow White gently. To everyone's amazement, the magic spell was broken. Snow White opened her eyes and saw the prince. It was love at first sight. The evil queen was never seen again. The prince and Snow White got married and lived happily ever after in a grand castle. The 7 dwarfs were always welcome at their castle and remained Snow White's dearest friends. And so, the story of Snow White reminds us that even in the darkest of times, kindness and true love will always prevail.